welcome everyone. My name is Rick Kempinski, and I am the director of fellowship recruitment here at Activate. One second, and let me just make sure we're on the same. You could turn it over, Maddie, to the next slide. Great. With me today are Katie Sharp. Happy birthday, Katie! Thank you for joining on your birthday. Our fellowship manager from Berkeley, and Jeffrey Song, our fellowship manager from Anywhere community, who will help answer your questions in the chat. So put them in the Q&A section as it goes along, or you can wait till the end during the Q&A session, and they're going to help us answer some of your questions. But thank you both for joining me today. Next slide. Perfect. So during our time together, we'll go over the following information. We're going to start with our story and purpose of why and how Activate was created. We'll then go into more detail about the fellowship experience. We will discuss our impact and results so far. And then we're going to review the application timeline and what we look for in an applicant and how to best prepare you for the application at this time. So finally, like I said, we're going to open it up to your questions. So please feel free to put your questions in the chat at any time, the Q&A, not the chat, the Q&A section throughout the presentation, and we'll do our best to answer as many of your questions via chat or live during the Q&A portion today, and we'll go over more later. Next slide, Maddie. Great. So this is our story and purpose. Next slide. We saw a gap in support for early stage entrepreneurial scientists and built this fellowship to meet that need. We created a pathway for scientists whose research was too applied for basic science, but too early for industry because they were often at an impasse, left with no career path that really satisfied them. So our fellowship is an intentional path that enables scientists and engineers to transform an idea into a product that addresses real and profound societal needs. Like I said, we see new ventures into early stage innovation ecosystems. We focus on several industries across 16 verticals to address global challenges. You could check those verticals out, all 16, at activate.org/verticals. It is a 2-year entrepreneurial fellowship that is mostly funded by government as well as philanthropic partners. A lot of those are listed on our website as well, if you look at our website. We've had 188 Activate Fellows across 9 cohorts. We were founded in 2015 as a 501c3 nonprofit to support Cyclotron Road at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. And our fellow communities are currently Berkeley, Boston, New York, our Anywhere community, which is across the country. And we just opened up our Houston community, which we're really excited about. Next slide. Great. So this is a picture from our most recent retreat in June. It includes staff, current and alumni fellows, and it really shows how interested we are not just in your technology, but as you as a person. Our fellowship is a premier program for scientists on a mission. We exist to support our fellows, full stop. Our job is to support you in your transformation from scientist to entrepreneur so that you can then ensure your innovation makes an impact. So as you can see here, we like to have fun as well and really build that community, not just in the community that you're placed in, but also across the whole fellowship itself. Next slide. So we mentioned this, we keep mentioning this, but Activate is for you. We do not charge any fees or take any equity in your companies. We do for individuals to join and participate in the fellowship. Our fellowship supports the people, first and foremost. We have that nonprofit mission to help you find the optimal path for your project to go to market. So really thinking about your idea and how to get it to commercialization, regardless of the specific business model. With a little caveat there that the program does provide optional funding opportunities that may take equity for additional flexible capital, but that's a separate program than Activate. Our fellows creates product. We actually have you create a product and a prototype for this space, and we help you bring it to commercialization to do some science for good. So we're all working for the same purpose. Next slide. Great. So all of our Activate Fellows share a common purpose, like we said, to improve the world through science. But just as there's no single solutions to these global crises, there's no single persona, path, or story behind who an Activate Fellow is. In fact, we feel that the more backgrounds and perspectives represented in the fellows community, the richer the fellowship experience will be for all fellows. So we do want to create a culture and an organization that is open and you feel safe and really is here to work for you and to bring different perspectives together. Next slide. So one such example is is Atasha Cave, who was in our first cohort in 2015. Atasha founded the company 12 along with 2 other co-founders. You can learn more about 12 on our website as well at activate.com/companies. They came out of Stanford. They were graduate students who received some early funding, but really a lot of the investors were asking them that they needed to see, a prototype to build something and show that their technology will can actually work. So they took the 2 years of our fellowship to actually build their prototype, which was super successful. And now they have, I believe, around 200 employees and have excelled and taken innovation from graduate school and built a company out of that, which is really exciting. Next slide. Miguel, also on a very similar path, he created a new combustion system out of Berkeley. It's really hard, as you know, to get people to use a new type of engine. He has a really innovative way to transition from fossil fuels using his technology. The interesting thing about Miguel is that he did apply several times and finally did succeed after a couple of tries, and his company is super successful. So that just kind of shows that you can, if you don't get the fellowship the first time you apply, that we do encourage people to apply in the future or multiple times. Great. So now we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the fellowship details. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what we give you all and the benefit of having being part of our program. So as I've mentioned, we are a 2-year program. We invest in you for 2 years to develop yourself as an entrepreneur. We provide an educational component. We provide mentorship and the ability for you to build your community in the ecosystem in order to be successful. In this time, you should be able to start building your company and developing your technology, and again, creating that prototype that I mentioned. In order to do that, we provide you with the funding, we provide you with lab space, the guidance to either stay on the path you're on or potentially pivot if you have to, based on the guidance that you're getting from your mentors, and making those connections to the right people. So you have that, you can be flexible. We can help you be flexible to go through the whole journey together with everybody and with us. But again, you should be creating that product. But then we also give you that time and that space in order to do that, and give you access to networks and capital from potential venture capitalists, as well as people in the government side of things as well. So we're constantly looking at this as a journey for you and helping you through this journey in the 2 years that you're here. Next slide. Perfect. So this slide really goes deeper into this. So when I would say time and funding, what we really mean is that you are given a yearly stipend, a living stipend of an 80,000 to 110,000, depending on your experience. We also give you a travel allowance to go to conferences and things that you might be able to present your technology at, or meet other people who might help you in your company and building out your company. We have health insurance reimbursement as well as a relocation for those who are moving outside of their current location to one of our in-residence communities. We give you $100,000 in research and development funding. So you get that for your company and working in your company and developing your product. And then you have access, like I mentioned earlier, to at least another $75,000 in additional flexible capital through our venture capital program, our venture partner program. We also give you access to an expert community. You've got an Activate team who's supporting you. We have a fellowship manager, a fellowship associate, as well as our managing directors. Our managing directors have been through the experience. They've been entrepreneurs and they're scientists, so they understand what your journey is going to be like and what you're going through, and they're there to help mentor you, as well as all of their network, right, that they've met and that they know along the way in that ecosystem that you're in. And then obviously our vibrant fellow and alumni community, always there to support you, help guide you, and act as mentors as well. And then we give you all these other tools. Like I mentioned, we have a whole entrepreneurial education curriculum that you have on a regular basis. You have local programming that our community has put together for you, which gives you access to speakers who are really great and really, really bring their scientific expertise to help you, or entrepreneurial scientists to help you as well, be on the right path. And then we have other intensive workshops and virtual classes and other professional development for you. But we also have you access in the community to the different labs and facilities that you need in order to develop your product. So you not only that, but you also work with those experts at those facilities while also making sure that you're retaining your own IP rights. So it's a very important part of the program is that you are holding onto those IP rights yourself and that they belong to you. Next slide. All right, so a day, a week, a quarter, a year in the life of a fellow. This slide really outlines what you're going to go through on a regular basis. So like we said, a lot of professional development. You're going to learn a lot in the experience on a weekly basis. You're going to be learning. You're going to be sharing your thoughts. You're going to be hearing from experts who are going to be really guiding you along the way. You're going to also have some casual fun. We've got our community teams always thinking about ways to do some bonding with each other, whether that be a coffee, a breakfast, lunches, happy hours. I think some team went on a ski trip, I think one time, which was really great. And then obviously looking at other small groups and one-on-one meetings with investors in the area, corporate partners, government program managers. So really people who are going to help you all of the time throughout the 2 years that you're in the fellowship. On a monthly basis, you're looking at mentorship check-ins with your managing director typically and the team to make sure that you are on the right track, that things are moving along, that you are hitting your goals. On a quarterly basis, you're going to be asked to meet with your advisory boards and leadership to help you again, give you feedback, help you build your company. And then on an annual basis, you're looking at reflecting over the year and all the highlights and all the areas that you want to improve. You could do that through the team. You could do that through your other fellows at our retreats and at the alumni reunion that we do on a yearly basis. All right, so I've mentioned these folks a few times, but here are their faces. These are our managing directors at our communities. We also, in addition to these four, have an executive managing director named Amy Rose, who is available also to guide and help fellows. And we're also hiring our Anywhere managing director. So that person should be on board in the next couple months to also help the folks in that with the Anywhere community as well. But we also have got, like I said, Jeffrey's on the call here. We have a fellowship manager and a fellowship associate at each of the communities, guiding you through and helping you, get through all of the work as a fellow and build that community. And we have our partnership managers too. They are helping you make those connections with all different sectors, all folks from the private sector, folks from government, folks from philanthropy, all the folks that you need in order to be successful during the fellowship and even after. All right, and here is our group of communities. I mentioned them already, but we started with Activate Berkeley, went over to Boston, and then it was a success over there as well. We knew we can grow, so we opened up Anywhere as well as our New York office. And now we're happy to announce that our managing director of Houston started 2 weeks ago, Jeremy, and we are kicking off getting Houston applications. So if you want to be part of a new community that is going to be built from the ground up this year, then this is your opportunity to apply to that community as well. All right, so we talked a little bit about the program, but I want to talk a little bit more about the impact and results that we've had so far. So we mentioned that we've had since 2015, 188 fellows come through who created 145 science-based companies, because as a reminder, you could be a solo founder or you can apply also with a co-founder. They've created $1.3 billion of follow-on funding after their fellowship. They've kept with, because of their connections that they made in the fellowship, were able to then raise additional money to help them be successful after the fellowship. They've created 1,300 new jobs in the US, so that's really exciting and a huge impact. And they've earned $32.4 million in total revenue by all Activate companies. So it works, right? Like we definitely can tell our numbers are speak for themselves. All right, and I've mentioned several times that we hope that the goal is to have you create a product and then help you bring it to commercialization. Here are 3 really great examples of those that were successful. We've had Umaro, who has created delicious ocean farmed red seaweed bacon. I've actually had this bacon and it's really good, and I like regular bacon as well. But I really encourage you to check it out. I think if you go to their website, they also sell some in some grocery stores, so you might be able to purchase it, or maybe even order it online from the website. But it's been really successful and it's really exciting and actually pretty tasty. Gradient created a commercial grade heat pump technology and made these air conditioning units more energy efficient. You can see it doesn't cover the whole window, so it makes it much better for putting it into your apartment. So that's really exciting. And then Melinda here also created a closed loop system to the recovery and reuse of carbon fiber composites, which can be used in several different industries, such as cars, planes, and I think sports gear as well, is my understanding. So all very exciting products that are actually now developed and out there on the market, or working to get on the market. Great. And so this quote is from Sarah Richardson, who said that my company would not exist without the support of this fellowship. That is great. We're really excited about all the great success that Sarah has done. But really, like, I think this speaks to the fact that, you know, we really care about Sarah as a person and really looked for her to be growing as a science entrepreneur through the fellowship. And I think because she was in the program and she got all the access to all the things that we've mentioned, she was super successful as well as developing her technology. Great. So let's dive a little bit deeper into the application deadline and what we're looking for in a potential applicant. Okay. So this year we are opening up the application on September 19th, and it will open for a month and close on October 17th. So please start preparing your application now for the opening in about a month, a little bit less than a month. After the application closes, we have an internal review, internal external review process to review the applications that we've got and start deciding, start learning more about the technologies in your technology. In January, you'll be invited, if you get selected, you'll be invited to do a video interview in January. So the selection committee can learn more about not just your technology, but also who you are as an entrepreneur. If you make it past the video interview round, you're invited to your finalist and invited to what we call Finalist Week, which will be taking place at the end of February to beginning of March of 2024. This is your opportunity to give a pitch about your technology as well as who you are to our subject matter experts, as well as community VIPs who help us determine the actual fellows who are going to be selected for that cohort. In April, we'll announce around April time, we announced who, if you've made it to the as a fellow in our Activate community, so that you could begin by June 1st for the actual fellowship itself. So it's a long process, but definitely start preparing now. So we did say that there was no exact person, but what we are looking for, what would be ideal in a lot of our fellows, are people who are committed, driven scientists and engineers who are really knowledgeable. You have to be really knowledgeable about your field, about the science that you're doing and the technology that you're developing. We really want you to be motivated to grow as entrepreneurs and really learn that business side, not only just the science side, but really the business side as well. We want people who are excited to participate in our community. Like I said, it's so important. It's such an important part of our program. So we really want people to be engaged with each other, with our alumni and with our mentors and all the people you're going to be connected to, so that you take that advice and you learn from everybody that you're going to be meeting, and who have the ability to lead the development of a credible technology that is feasible, has potential for impact, and is aligned with our mission of science for good. Very important. So finally, just asking yourself, would receiving this fellowship support make a difference? If you've already raised millions and millions of dollars from private companies, you probably don't need us. If you've already had a few successful or started a few businesses, you don't need us. You already know how to do this. We're really looking for those folks who've never done it before and would learn a lot from having this and also really benefit from this program. Great. And more specifically for the eligibility, you must have a bachelor's degree. I think this will probably come up a bunch of times in the questions that are popping up, I see. But you must have a bachelor's degree in 4+ years post-baccalaureate scientific research, engineering, or technology development experience. You must be leading the commercial development of a hardware-based technology innovation for the first time. That speaks to the not being a repeat hard tech founder. You have to commit to this full time if you are awarded the fellowship. You must legally be able to work in the US for the duration of the fellowship, and we do communicate in English, so you should be able to communicate proficiently in English. Your project or company has to be based in the physical or biological sciences or related engineering disciplines. You must be still in the development and not ready for full-scale product sales at the time of the application deadline. Excuse me. And you must not have raised more than $2 million in non-governmental sources at the time of the application deadline. Next slide. Great. So these are a lot of our top frequently asked questions that come up, and then I'm going to open it up to other questions from the audience. But if you're a foreign national, are you eligible? You absolutely are, as long as you have a pathway to legally work in the United States for the duration of the fellowship. More information can be found on our FAQs, so please take a look at that when you can, if you are a foreign national. We do support co-founders. You can support we support up to 2 applicants as fellows on a team, so you can do that, through the application process. How early is early stage? We are saying that concept stage is okay, but ideally you must have a proof of concept to an early prototype. So definitely around that stage is the typical stage that people apply at. For IP, our agreements are designed to protect your IP so that you own your IP. You can spend the $100,000 of the research and development funds using mostly through a recoverable grant that is you're able to use it for technical work. So really thinking about how much that's going to cost in developing that product. Excuse me. And then finally, this will come up. We do not traditionally support traditional pharmaceuticals. And the reason for that is because there is a cheap and clear pathway for that through the FDA process that already exists. So we don't feel like it is worth the time to go through our fellowship for that, but you can definitely go through that other process. So we're really looking for non-traditional pharmaceuticals. There are some companies on our website who have who are in the biomedical space, but they're not typically doing traditional pharmaceuticals. Or if they do, it's because of very different reasons. So if you have a specific question about your own, we can talk about that in office hours or through our apply inbox. All right, I think I'm almost done. Ways to prepare. Start talking to people now. We really want to encourage you to talk to people outside of academia, specifically to kind of learn a little bit more about what it's like to be an entrepreneur, a science entrepreneur. So do your market research. If you have an idea, think about your value proposition. What is it? Why is it a good idea? Talk more about it and start fleshing out your idea. Build a back of the envelope cost model. Will it be economical? Is it viable? Check it all out. We have a whole section on our website about techoeconomics that you should definitely be looking at and learning more about for you to be prepared. Think about who you want as a co-founder and advisor, potentially teaming up with people rather than being a solo founder. It's up to you. There's benefits, pros and cons to both. So be thinking about that and what works well for you. And then learn about some other programs. We have courses, blogs, videos, and resources for you on our activate.org/learn website as well. All right, so what to do now? You've already completed a webinar, so congratulations. This is the first step. Thank you for joining us today. We have office hours coming up. We have office hours throughout the application process, so definitely keep checking those out. If you have specific questions about your own technology or about the application, please join those. Our first one is August 23rd, excuse me, but they're going to be running throughout, so keep checking our website for other office hours. We have a Women Founders Forum happening on August 29th, where we have several panelists, current and alumni fellows who can talk about their own experience. Please look at our fellowship page and our FAQ page that probably has the answer to your question already, but there's chock full of information there. And you could read more about our companies and our fellows on our website as well, and really start thinking about what community you might want to join. We have upcoming webinars for each community talking about the benefits of going to work for them. So please sign up for those and register for those. Start thinking about your technical vision and your pathway to success. Think about, like I said, your co-applicants, who else you might want to apply with. And then how is this fellowship going to be beneficial to you and your project? How is it going to help you move your idea forward? Okay, and the Activate New York, for those folks, I saw a bunch of people from New York who said they were on this call. We're going to have our Activate New York community is having an open house, a recruitment social hour on August 23rd in person. So please sign up on our website, register on our website to attend. Go there now and sign up, and hopefully you'll get to meet our team and start talking to other fellows. Great, and if you have any questions after this and we don't get to your question, please send an email to apply@activate.org. Or if you know someone who wants to work for Activate, have them send them to our website, and we have several job openings as well. So I think that's our last slide. I'm gonna stop, and I've been talking for a long time, and I'm sure you all have many questions. I see them coming in, so please continue to send those in. And I will, we can stop sharing our screen maybe, Maddie, and then I think Katie and Jeffrey hop in here and join me to help answer some questions.
Thank you, Rick. Hi, everyone. So yeah, the Q&A is going off. Our team is trying to answer as many questions in writing as possible. So please take your time to read through those answers for some of the frequently asked questions that are coming through. But myself, again, Jeffrey, I'm the fellowship manager for our Anywhere community, and Katie Sharp, the fellowship manager for the Berkeley community. We're here to answer some of the more thornier questions that are a little bit easier to answer live. And so, Katie, I think first off, we're getting a lot of questions about kind of the question around hardware versus software in terms of the eligibility for the application, eligibility for the fellowship, what Activate is looking for. Any kind of initial ruminations on that question?
Yeah, so in general, we don't support pure software companies, but there are exceptions that prove every rule. So, in general, so what I would say that we pretty much don't support are like SaaS plays. So like software as a service, we're just not going to support that. One of the things our fellows tell us that they really appreciate about being in our community is that they're surrounded by all other hard tech founders, whereas in other programs, it's more a mix of software and hardware. And they find that some of the advice they're given in those programs doesn't really apply to them. And so they really value in our community that they feel like everyone's kind of doing that. That being said, we have supported software in the past, and it's often like has some hardware adjacency or component. So for example, if you were making software that would enable advanced manufacturing and you're going to need to integrate into like factory control systems or something like that would probably be something that we would support, versus like if it's an app that a consumer is going to use for whatever, we're definitely not going to support that. So I don't know if there's any more color that someone would appreciate on that, but that's, I think, the best stab I can take at that. And certainly if you have a hardware component and a software component and you're doing both and they play together, that's totally fine. Like many of our fellows have a software component to interact with their technology, and that's of course fine.
Yeah, I think that covers it. Yeah, I think I would add to an example of one of the exceptions for that is pretty common is, right, if you're kind of developing new algorithms, but you're going to need a hardware component to make it realized and as a product, it's something that Activate could support you with. But again, as Katie mentioned, if it is a pure software company that you are proposing or technology, Activate, there are a lot of other great programs out there and accelerators and support systems out there for companies like yours. And Activate, we're here primarily to try to support more hardware-based technologies to take the next step forward. Katie, I think the other big questions that are coming through are about kind of applying to different communities. How do you decide between communities? What's going to be the process for selecting communities in the application this coming year? Yeah, take that away.
I think my number one advice when you're looking at the different communities is like, where do you want to live? That is the first filter. It is by far the most important filter. So if you do not want to live in New York City, well, there's some exceptions because you could live in Ithaca and commute down. But okay, if you don't want to live near the in-residence community and travel to and be in that community every other week for local programming, don't apply to that community, because that's really so then apply to anywhere, right? So the rule is that you're eligible for anywhere if you're at least 50 miles from any of our in-residence communities. And yeah, like if you've always wanted to move to New York City or the Bay Area and this is your opportunity to do so and you're living wherever, great, apply to that community. We're happy to have you move. We provide relocation funds. But if you don't want to move to a certain place, don't apply there. It's not like it doesn't do you any favors, because we're going to ask you about that pretty point blank during the application process. So it's not like if you choose multiple, you're more likely to get in. It's like choose what you really, really want. If you're then flexible, you would be happy to move anywhere. You're happy to live wherever the resources are best fit. Then I'd recommend you attend the community specific webinars that are going to be coming up, because that's going to be your best opportunity to really understand like the specific support and differences between the different communities, and then make a really informed choice. But first filter should always be, where do you want to live?
Yeah, thanks, Katie. I would reinforce that as the fellowship manager for the Anywhere community. As we get often in our process, this ends up being the conversations like, why do you want to build a company where you are? And so we at the Anywhere community do want to support fellows and companies that are trying to start and build their companies from places that aren't not in kind of the major entrepreneurial hubs where our current in-residence communities are. And so that'll be part of kind of the discussion as well. So yes, just reiterating, please apply to the community that you want to be a part of, where you want to move and live and build your company. That it should be the first and foremost thought you have.
The one thing I just want to note, Jeffrey, sorry, I know Katie mentioned that it's 50, the radius is 50 miles. I think we've expanded it to 70 miles for this cohort, for this application process. So
thanks, Rick.
We had traditionally been 50 miles, but now it's 70 miles if you're outside of that radius.
My apologies. And then Rick, could you also speak to the choices, like how many choices people are going to be able to choose this year in terms of communities?
Yeah, you're going to be able to choose as many preferences as you want. You just also have to make you're going to have to also write a justification for each of those communities that you're interested in and why you want to go to that community. So you don't have to prefer, you're going to be able to rank your community basically and give a justification of why you're interested in that one. But you could rank all of them if you want.
Okay, I think the other kind of large question that's also commonly asked is around thinking about co-founders on the application and the team. I think questions around what does it mean to have a co-founder with different skill sets, things like that. But I think mainly, again, I'm guessing for this audience is to think about like, do I do this application with a co-applicant? What type of person should that be? What's the participation of a co-applicant or an affiliate fellow? Yeah, Katie, you want to start that, and then I'll try to wrap up.
Yeah, so you can have up to 2 co-applicants on an application. In an ideal world, if we accept a team of 2 co-applicants, we would love to be able to offer funded fellowships to both people. Unfortunately, financially, often that is not the case. So Activate itself, we have sponsors from government and philanthropy. So for example, the National Science Foundation or the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, and each team is sponsored by is paid for by a particular sponsor. And that sponsor may not have sufficient funds in that year to pay for 2 stipends. So that's our goal. We'd love to be able to do that, but we can't always. So in that case, what we do is we have 1 funded fellow and 1 affiliate fellow. So the funded fellow gets a stipend and $12K of travel and professional development money, and each funded fellow gets that. And then if there is an affiliate fellow, they participate in the fellowship program, all the educational programming, all the mentorship, all the community aspects, exactly the same as any other fellow. Other fellows generally don't even know who's a funded fellow and who's an affiliate, but they don't get that individual stipend. And so that's just funds permitting for us, but we cannot add a fellow, even an affiliate fellow, to your team after the application process is complete. So if you're not sure what you want to do, we recommend you apply with your co-applicant. You can also remove an applicant from your application at any time with no penalty to you as an applicant. So that happens. We understand that like teams are often shifting a lot in the very early stages of company formation. So that's fine. And an applicant can be removed if they decide to go on and do something else, they get a job, what have you. But you preserve your flexibility if you apply together, and we will try to find you both funding. And then each team gets 100K of R&D money. That's per team. So whether there's 1 or 2 funded fellows, that 100K is the same. Optional venture funding that Rick mentioned, the amount of that you're eligible for is also per team. In that case, it's per company.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. And then I think I'll add is that if both of the co-applicants meet all the eligibility requirements and become both fellows, at least externally and also even internally beyond the funding aspect, you two will both be considered as full-time fellows of the program in terms of participating in our educational content, in terms of our networking, opportunities, in terms of growing as a science entrepreneur. That's available to both fellows. And I think considering if you would want to apply with a co-founder, I think that's, just thinking through think about what sort of resources that your team needs. And we're here to talk through that. So please ask away at office hours or come meet us and talk or ask questions, since these situations can be pretty specific.
I guess there's one for Rick that I don't know the answer to, is like, is there a place where it's easy to see the application materials that are required before the application's open next month?
I think we're still working on that, but that should be available on our website in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, it should probably outline a little bit more about what you can prepare, like definitely getting your resume together and your like what a technical vision might look like. It should be up in the next couple of weeks. And I do want to point out, there's a couple questions I think about. I just want to make note of the visa as well for folks who are foreign nationals. We do not sponsor you. We Activate does not sponsor fellowship visas for fellows. You are not an employee of Activate. You're an employee of your company. So you should have a clear pathway of how you are going to obtain whatever visa you are able to work during the fellowship itself. It could be, some people are on OPTs and do switch over, but you do have to work with an immigration lawyer, or we do encourage you to talk to folks on that process and how to make sure that you align it with the fellowship timeline. And one other note on that is that we did a foreign national webinar, and so it's on our YouTube channel. If you follow that on our website, you can go there and watch that webinar from last year and have some really great advice from folks who've been through the visa process in order to participate in the program.
I guess the other thing, I see a couple people who have like maybe platform applications, and so maybe I can offer a little bit of advice on just how to write the strongest application in that case. I see particularly from Greg Friedlander, he had a question I think it's easier for me to just talk through. So many people apply with a platform technology, so the underlying tech can be applied to many markets, many applications you're maybe still exploring. My advice there is to sort of follow this general formula, right? Is to very clearly explain to us what your fundamental technological advance is, then explain like sort of briefly how and why it could apply to a wide range of markets and list off several of what those markets are, and then maybe do a little bit of a case study on one that you think might be your beachhead market and why. I think that's the best advice I can give. What I would suggest is I would suggest you not come in with an application. This happens a lot when people do I-Corps, which we love. We think everyone should do I-Corps, but people sometimes, if they're writing their application coming fresh out of I-Corps, what they do is they pick the application that they investigated during I-Corps, that market, and they say, I have a solution for this market. The problem is, if we don't really think that's like a great solution, or our expert panel doesn't, and it's actually much broader and you could do lots of things, you're relying on us to be able to see that from your technology and make that connection, and we might miss it. And so my advice is like, what is the fundamental technological advance? What is the broad array of things it could apply to? And then here's my why I think this is my beachhead. That's going to be the best sort of formula for us to really understand what your tech can do, and then evaluate it, like, you know, for its full potential versus like a very niche application that we may not get excited about, or we might miss the platform application.
Some questions about kind of if you're at a disadvantage, if you've kind of had a company incorporated for a bit. I would say that my answer to that would be that Activate has supported a broad range of companies and fellows and technologies and ideas, both from just having an idea kind of on paper to come to Activate, all the way to companies that are that have been incorporated for a bit but are either pivoting to something new or waiting to take the next level with some aspect of their technology and need Activate support and have a credible kind of explanation for that. So yeah, it's often case by case. And then again, I think Activate is looking to help you as a fellow gain the education needed to grow in your entrepreneurial skill set, as well as making a big impact. And so if you can put that forward in your application, regardless of where your stage is, typically, I think that'll be fine. I think the only hard rule to avoid is if this is your second time starting a company, then we have a pretty hard rule that we want to provide our resources and our programming to those who are trying to do this endeavor for the first time.
I see some questions about SBIR. Do you all want to mention that, or your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I just answered one of them in writing, but yeah, so the rule is that you can't have the funding cap rule for eligibility is you cannot have raised more than $2 million in dilutive funding before the application deadline. Grants are not dilutive funding, so there's no cap on grants. And many people come to us with like an SBIR phase 1 already in place. We want to be helping people who really need our help. And so the more money you've raised, certainly always be honest. I mean, honesty is important. We want to know the truth about where you are at with your company. But the more money you've raised, or the more grants you brought in, the larger your team is, it does decrease the odds that we're going to select you as a fellow. But that's only because, again, we think you probably don't need our help as much as someone who has less funding. But certainly people who come in with a phase 1 SBIR, that's not uncommon at all. And then there was one other question I thought I saw, I don't know. Oh, there was one about timeline. So about people, if you're defending your PhD and the fellowship starts in July, it actually starts in June, but timeline defense. So here's what I'll say. If you are defending your PhD and you're currently like in the end of graduate school, that's great. We're happy to have you apply. Please apply. The fellowship starts June 1st, and everyone needs to fellowship activities June 1st. So that means meeting with your managing director to get mentorship and support. That means attending our fellow retreat in June. That means attending programming, starting to have your quarterly meetings, all these things that are aspects of the fellowship programming. We expect everyone to start together on June 1st. You need to be able to do that. That being said, in terms of when you officially start your fellowship, so when you actually start getting paid and get your first stipend, we have flexibility for that up to September 1st. So if, for example, you need to defend your thesis and graduate, and that's going to happen sometime in June or July, that's fine. You just need to start your fellowship programming on June 1st, and then your official start date can be later to accommodate your graduation date. And we've accommodated many people. The only other thing I would say is like get really clear about with your advisor about whether they agree that you're ready to defend your thesis in July. We will talk to them as part of the reference check process. And so we've certainly had situations where someone says, oh yes, I'm going to defend in July. And we talk to their thesis advisor and they say next July, maybe, in that case. So just like have that conversation with your advisor. And if you want to use getting the fellowship as leverage to get your committee to let you defend, I support you. And do co-applicants need to commit to full-time too? Yes, they do. If you are a fellow, funded fellow, or an affiliate fellow, we expect you to be working at your company full-time. To be clear, people sometimes get confused, like we're going to somehow track your hours in the lab, or I don't know. We're not. We're trusting that you are working full-time to grow your company and doing whatever activity that is. So 1 week that could be being in the lab, a different week or a different month that could be hiring, that could be to a conference or meet with a customer. There's no activity that we're expecting you to do full-time, but you do both need to be working full-time at your company to be a funded or an affiliate fellow.
There's a question in here about if the fellowship is for just recent graduates or early career, and the answer there is no. Yep, you can be at any stage as long as you have an idea and you want to bring it to commercialization. We actually have in this cohort 2 professors, right? I think some full professors who are on sabbatical or leave of absence, I think, from the university even, and so there's no so you can be as experienced in your career at any point in your stage. Yep.
I think the only requirement if you're mid-career is that you can't be like a multiple-time founder. Like you still need to be a first-time founder. You spent your career doing other things, working at another larger company, whatever it is, or even working at startups, but not as a founder. Like that's all fine. Happy to have mid-career transitioners. Just have to be a first-time founder.
And I think I see some questions about working at labs. I think this is around maybe talking about the IP and how to make sure that they hold on to their own rights. I think maybe if you have some advice on that, how that process works within the community.
Well, so I mean, companies own the IP that they develop as part of the fellowship. Many of our fellows have to out-license their IP from a university or other institution where they did their research. That's generally a frustrating process, and we try to support people through it. But any IP that you and your employees develop during the fellowship is fully owned by you. That's one of the reasons you need to be an employee of your own company, because then you can assign your IP rights to your company, and then it's all clean and tidy.
And then I think this comes up a lot for our Anywhere fellows is the activates $100,000 of R&D support can go to you finding the lab space and situation that's best fits for you and your company. Some of that can involve, say, for example, setting up shop in your university's kind of entrepreneur hub or lab space, which can have some licensing sort of situation related to the IP that you're licensing out of the university. So Activate, we're here to help provide advice and support and helping you to negotiate and navigate those conversations, but we don't intercede or interfere in those sorts of moments, but provide you the funding so you can access the lab space that you do need.
All right, I need to depart to prep for my next meeting, but hopefully this was helpful. And I do encourage people too to, like, if you're not sure, your question seems thorny or it wasn't answered, to go to the office hours for recruitment, and you'll get some help there.
Thank you, Katie. Happy birthday, and thank you for your help. I think maybe we have time for maybe one more or two more questions, maybe, and then we're gonna all have to hop off. But and you all, if you got your questions answered, feel free to get going or attend one of the office hours that Katie mentioned. Please sign up. Or you send us an email at apply@activate.org. If you have questions about your specific technology, we can hopefully get an answer to you about whether or not it aligns with our mission.
Seeing lots of questions about IP. Certainly, kind of what your IP situation is will be a part of the kind of application evaluation process to make sure that you have some freedom to operate, some line of sight to that. In terms of Activate support for that, we'll certainly get you into contact with experts, legal experts that we know, and specifically in the IP space, especially around university licensing at the start. But we don't have like specific like funds or kind of support in that regard, other than just a wealth of advice and a huge network of alumni and people who've navigated very similar situations to help support you in your IP negotiations as a fellow.
And the only other question I see here is, it says, is it mandatory to have a registered company for the fellowship? And my understanding is you don't have to have it registered by application, but you do have to have it registered by September after you're awarded the fellowship. Is that correct?
Correct, because yeah, you need to have a company incorporated for us to be able to deliver you the funding. So, but yes, there is some flexibility in the timeline, but not that much flexibility.
Great. I think we're at time. Jeffrey, thank you again for your help as well. Again, if your question did not get answered, please reach out to us. We will be sending a follow-up email with our slide and with this webinar recording. So thank you all for your time and have a great day.